The people who say what Philippe says, that enhanced interrogation, you don't get anything because they won't, because they'll tell you anything you want to know, don't know how enhanced interrogation is implied. Unlike Philippe and the other critics, I've actually spoken to the CIA interrogators, the people who waterboarded Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and applied these enhanced interrogation techniques. And one of the things they told me, which was fascinating, when Abu Zubaydah, the first terrorist who was interrogated by the CIA, was waterboarded, he thanked his interrogators for waterboarding and said to them, "You must do this for all the brothers." And why did he do that? The reason he did it, he said, is because the jihadi philosophy is that Allah will prevail no matter what they do. So their moral responsibility is to resist as much as they can, and then once they have resisted, they are free to say whatever they want to do. They can spill their guts. Now, if you know that, how do you design an interrogation plan? You design an interrogation program that is safe, that will not harm the detainees, but gives them something to resist. And that is what the CIA did with these, and they got intelligence that stopped terrorist attacks.
Do you support torture? I know you do not.
Torture.
I know you don't call it torture.
It isn't
but
torture.
The extreme pain, the enhanced interrogation techniques.
The technique. There have been so many misstatements told about the enhanced interrogation techniques, comparing them to the Spanish Inquisition, to the Khmer Rouge. And I have to tell you, Christiane, you're one of the people who have spread these mistruths.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry. You went to S21, the Khmer Rouge prison and with Van Nath, who's one of the survivors.
Yes, and we saw waterboarding there, which they used as torture techniques.
Let me read to you.
That's called spreading the truth.
No. Let me read to you what you said. I stared. This is from the CNN website.
Correct.
I stared blankly at another of Van Nath's painting. This time, a prisoner is submerged in a life-size box of water, handcuffed to the side so he cannot escape or raise his head to breathe. His interrogators arrayed around him, demanding information. I asked Van Nath whether he had heard this was once used on America's terror suspects. He nodded his head. It's not right. That is completely false. We did not submerge people in a box full of water. S21.
Excuse me a second.
S21.
That is called waterboarding.
No, it's
not.
You
can say in whichever way you want.
Christiane, you're absolutely wrong.
I'm sorry.
This was Pol Pot and the genocidal regime.
14,000 people killed at S21.
Correct.
7 survivors.
Excuse me. You're trying to obfuscate the debate here. That prison was full of images of water torture.
Which is nothing like what the CIA did.
It is what the Israelis use, the waterboarding. Philippe, how do you answer Marc on this?
I mean, in a very simple way. There is no doubt that waterboarding is torture. Marc supports waterboarding, and some will say, not me, some will say that by writing about it in this way, he is complicit in torture. I'm a passionate believer in... I'm a passionate believer in freedom of speech, and I don't believe people who write books are in that way, in any way, complicit. But those who engage in the activity of waterboarding are engaging in torture. Susan Crawford, President Bush's own convening authority at Guantanamo, has confirmed that Mohammed al-Qahtani, who wasn't even waterboarded, was tortured. But let me take it a step further. I mean, I understand that Marc doesn't think waterboarding is torture. Why doesn't he submit himself to that technique?
Because it's terribly unpleasant, and I'm not a terrorist.
I understand that he was intending to submit himself to that technique, but in the end bottled out of it because he didn't have confidence. He didn't have confidence that those who would impose it on him would necessarily pull the plug at the right moment. It is an appalling technique.
Okay, let me ask you this, because you've said your point, and Philippe said his point. I would like to know about what you recommend going forward. Now that the president has banned torture, enhanced interrogation techniques, what happens going forward, and what do you think?
Well, we should reconstitute the CIA interrogation program, but I want to answer this.
This same program?
I want to answer this because this is very important. First of all, what you had said was not waterboarding. You had said a bucket, a barrel filled with water. You have no evidence whatsoever that the CIA ever actually did what you said they did. But putting that aside,
you're splitting hairs, Marc.
No, I'm not. It's a barrel of water.
Oh, come on, Marc.
No. Hold on.
Dipping people's heads in water to simulate drowning.
No, listen.
Period. End of story.
Not period. End of story. I want to answer this, Christiane.
Marc, it matters not whether you put someone's head in a bucket of water.
It does. Let me tell you something. We waterboarded in the CIA. The CIA waterboarded 3 terrorists. Just 3. Nobody waterboarded in Guantanamo. You know who else the U.S. government has waterboarded? tens of thousands of American service members during their SEER training. We do not pull off their fingernails. We do not electrocute them with cattle prods. We do not pour hot oil down their nostrils or other forms of interrogation or do the things that were done to them in S-21, but we do waterboard them. Do you not think if waterboarding was torture, that one of those American service members would have complained to his congressman, there would have been congressional hearings, and it would have been banned by law? If we had been pulling off their fingernails, that would have happened.
Right. Well, we're talking about waterboarding, and certainly a lot of people have complained.
Can I put one question to Mark?
Yeah.
Christiane, can I put one question to Mark? If it's not torture and if it's not a problem, do you have any objection to American nationals being waterboarded in other countries? Do you have any objection to American servicemen and women being subjected to waterboarding? American servicemen and women are lawful combatants who are protected by the Geneva Conventions. Terrorists who are unlawful combatants who target innocent men and women and women are not lawful combatants, and you can interrogate them differently.
Can I ask you, Mark,
but the point is, I want to ask you, Philippe, why is waterboarding American service members? Let me finish now. Why is waterboarding American service members not torture? Or do we torture our troops?
They're only done in training, as you know.
I think training is a completely different thing.
Okay, so you acknowledge that not all waterboarding is torture. So when we waterboard our troops, it's not torture.
Mark.
I find it incredible, Mark, that you would suggest that an American serviceman or woman who is put through that process, knowing that the moment he asks for it to stop, it will be stopped, could be the same thing as being waterboarded.
I want to ask the final question.
But Christiane, can I just put this point? I take it that Mark has confirmed, as General Myers confirmed to me, as General Hill confirmed to me, it would be totally unacceptable in all circumstances for any American to be subject to any of these techniques abroad.
Because they have Geneva Convention, full protections of the Geneva Convention, which terrorists do not merit.
Can I ask you this?
Yes.
Do you not think that all of this debate, including America's ability to keep dangerous people imprisoned, would have been enhanced had the Bush administration simply called them POWs from the beginning, put them away until the end of the war with the rights and protections of the Geneva Conventions, but kept them away in prison until the end of the war?
But why would we give them Geneva Convention protections? They don't merit Geneva Convention protections. They're terrorists. The Geneva Convention, this is one of the biggest myths about the Geneva Convention. It is not designed to govern the treatment of prisoners of war. It is designed to protect civilians from, to get people to follow the laws of war. So if you give the same protections to someone who violates the laws of war as someone who follows them, you completely undermine the Geneva Conventions. But the point is, these techniques, as applied by the CIA, produced intelligence that stopped a terrorist attack to blow up our consulate in Karachi, to blow up our marine camp in Djibouti, for Al-Qaeda, they were planning to hijack an airplane and fly it into Heathrow Airport and buildings in downtown London. I hope nowhere near your offices, Philippe. And they were planning to fly an airplane into Library Tower in Los Angeles. So my question to Philippe is, which of these attacks would you prefer we hadn't stopped?